Let me be straight with you right from the jump. I've spent the last 7+ years quietly stacking a food stockpile that looks nothing like what you see in prepping forums, YouTube channels, or subreddits. And I've kept my mouth shut about it. On purpose. Not because I'm secretive, because the moment you start broadcasting what you're storing, you create exactly the problem you're trying to solve. So today I'm doing something I don't normally do. I'm pulling back the curtain on the specific items in my deep storage that most people will never think to buy. Items that were sitting fully stocked on shelves while everyone else was losing their minds over empty rice bins and bare canned goods aisles. Here's what really gets me. The prepping community, for all its talk about thinking differently, is one of the most herd mentality groups out there. Everyone reads the same blogs, watches the same channels, buys from the same handful of suppliers, and ends up with basically identical stockpiles. Which means when the panic sets in, everyone is chasing the same finite supply of the same products at the same time. That's not a strategy. That's a stampede. I've watched this play out during 4 separate regional supply disruptions over the past several years. Every single time, the same pattern: standard prepper staples gone within hours, while the items I'm about to share sat completely untouched. Some of them for days. One of them for nearly 2 full weeks. So let's get into it. No filler, no fluff, just the actual information. Food None 1, duck fat. Yeah, I know. Weird place to start. But the weirder something sounds, the less likely people are to buy it during a panic, which is exactly why it belongs in your stockpile. Duck fat is pure caloric density, around 120 calories per tablespoon. That matters more than people realize in a genuine emergency. When you're stressed, physically active, sleeping poorly, and running on adrenaline, your body burns through calories at a rate that surprises most people. High-quality fat becomes critical fuel, not optional, critical. What makes duck fat exceptional versus other fats is its shelf stability. Animal fats stored correctly don't go rancid the way plant-based oils do. I've got jars sitting in cool storage right now that are 3 years old. Perfectly good. Not even a question. Compare that to a bottle of vegetable oil, which starts oxidizing within months of being opened. And even sealed bottles have a clock ticking on them. My approach: buy it in jars from specialty grocers or online. Transfer into smaller glass jars with tight lids, and park them in the coolest, darkest spot in your storage area. They take up almost no space, and a single jar goes a long way in cooking, because fat is calorie-dense and flavor-dense. 1 tablespoon can transform a bland pot of rice into something you'd actually want to eat. During a grid-down situation where you're burning wood or propane to cook, you want every cooking session to count. Duck fat makes basic ingredients taste like food, not punishment. Food 2. Cream of tartar. Walk into any grocery store right now, go to the baking aisle, and I guarantee you'll find this sitting right there, completely ignored, right next to the baking soda. Most people buy it once a year for a specific recipe, and have no idea what else it does. That ignorance is your advantage. Here's the thing about cream of tartar in a survival context. It's a natural acidifier that lets you make bread rise without yeast. Mix half a teaspoon with half a teaspoon of baking soda, and you've just made baking powder from scratch. In a long-term emergency situation where yeast has gone bad or isn't available, which it won't be, because yeast is perishable and loses potency within months even when stored properly, this becomes genuinely important. Beyond the leavening application, you can mix cream of tartar with milk to create a substitute for buttermilk. That opens up a whole range of baking possibilities: biscuits, pancakes, quick breads. I tested this during an extended power outage while cooking on a camp stove. Made fluffy biscuits with 0 refrigerated ingredients. It worked exactly as advertised. Shelf life is essentially indefinite when stored sealed and dry. I have containers that are 5 years old with no detectable degradation. Buy it in bulk from a restaurant supply store. A pound runs about $15 and will last you years of regular use. Store it in an airtight container, keep moisture away from it, and forget about it until you need it. Nobody is panic buying cream of tartar ever. That's the whole point. Food 3. Unflavored gelatin powder. Not Jell-O. Not anything flavored. Plain unflavored gelatin powder. This one gets overlooked constantly, and it's a real mistake. Here's why it matters. Gelatin is a pure protein source, roughly 6 grams per tablespoon, that requires 0 refrigeration and has a shelf life of 3 to 5 years. When you're living off a stored food supply for an extended period, protein variety becomes a genuine concern. You can only eat so many canned beans before the monotony starts affecting morale, and monotony in a crisis is more dangerous than people acknowledge. But gelatin isn't just any protein. It contains specific amino acids, glycine and proline primarily, that support joint health, gut lining integrity, and connective tissue. If you're doing hard physical labor that you're not accustomed to during an emergency, which is extremely likely, joint stress accumulates fast. Small nutritional gaps that seem minor in the short term compound into real health problems over weeks and months. I had a conversation years ago with someone who lived through a genuine prolonged crisis. He described how the first month was manageable, but by month 3, people were dealing with health issues from dietary gaps that nobody anticipated. The obvious stuff, calories, basic macros, people plan for. The subtle stuff catches people off guard. Gelatin is cheap insurance against some of those subtle gaps. A pound costs around $12, provides dozens of servings, and dissolves in hot liquid. Add it to soups, broths, sauces, nobody will notice it's there. You'll notice the long-term health benefit. Food 4. Dried chickpeas. Bought in bulk. This is the one that genuinely should have made it into mainstream prepping consciousness years ago, and somehow hasn't. Dried chickpeas stored properly last 20 to 30 years, with full nutritional value intact. Not just technically edible, nutritionally complete. Show me another protein source with that shelf life at under $2 a pound. I'll wait. The versatility alone justifies stocking them heavily. Cook them whole as a protein-rich side dish. Mash them into hummus. Roast them for a crunchy snack. Grind them into chickpea flour and make flatbreads, pancakes, batters. Sprout them for fresh greens when you've got no access to produce. One ingredient, half a dozen completely different applications, each solving a different problem. Here's the key detail most people miss. Buy them from Middle Eastern or Indian grocery stores, not the small overpriced bags at your regular supermarket. You'll pay a fraction of the price and get a product that's often fresher with higher turnover. A pound of dried chickpeas from a specialty grocer runs under $2. From a regular supermarket, you might pay 3 times that for less product. From a nutrition standpoint, 15 grams of protein per cooked cup, loaded with fiber, iron, and folate. When you're eating a restricted diet, nutritional density per dollar matters enormously. Chickpeas deliver. Storage is simple. Food-grade buckets, airtight lids, oxygen absorbers. Seal them up, put them somewhere cool and dry, and those chickpeas will genuinely outlast you. I keep 75 pounds in deep storage. Cost me around $120. That's thousands of servings of quality protein for less than most people spend on 2 weeks of groceries. The math isn't even close. Food 5. Multiple varieties of vinegar. I know what you're thinking. Vinegar? But here's where most people get this wrong. They buy 1 gallon of white vinegar and consider the box checked. That's leaving enormous value on the table. Vinegar's survival utility goes way beyond what people realize. Obviously, it's a cleaning agent and preservative, but it's also a food extender. If you have access to garden vegetables or foraged produce during a prolonged situation, vinegar lets you pickle and extend the life of fresh food by months. That's massive. That's the difference between a surplus and a shortage. Different vinegars serve different purposes. White vinegar handles cleaning, basic preservation, and disinfection. Apple cider vinegar is better for cooking and has legitimate uses in gut health maintenance. Red wine vinegar adds complexity to sauces and dressings that make repetitive meals actually palatable. Rice vinegar opens up entirely different flavor profiles for grain dishes. Here's the thing about flavor variety during a crisis. It matters more than people think it will. The psychological impact of eating the same monotonous food every day is real and cumulative. Condiments and dressings that you can make from scratch using stored vinegar, oil, and spices keep morale up. That's not a luxury. That's a functional necessity for long-term sustainability. Shelf life indefinite. I have vinegar in storage that's 6 years old and chemically identical to the day I bought it. The acidity prevents any spoilage mechanism from taking hold. It doesn't degrade. It doesn't go off. It just sits there, waiting. During the last major shortage I observed, white vinegar sold out at a moderate pace. Specialty vinegars sat on shelves for weeks. People in panic mode don't reach for balsamic. That's your window. Like, comment, subscribe. If this information is actually useful to you, hit that like button and subscribe. There's more coming that you genuinely don't want to miss. Food 6. Dried mushrooms. Multiple varieties. Most preppers skip mushrooms entirely, or grab one small package from the grocery store and move on. Both approaches are mistakes. Dried mushrooms are one of the most nutritionally dense, space-efficient, flavor-intensive foods you can store. 1 pound of dried mushrooms rehydrates to roughly 8 pounds of usable product. You're getting massive volume in minimal storage space. The nutritional profile is legitimately impressive. B vitamins, vitamin D, rare and plant-based foods, selenium, potassium, and compounds that support immune function. In a situation where dietary variety is limited, these micronutrients fill gaps that common staple foods miss entirely. But here's the thing that really makes dried mushrooms worth stocking. Umami. That deep, savory, meaty quality that makes food feel satisfying and complete, rather than just caloric. When meat is scarce or absent, dried mushrooms give you that same psychological and culinary satisfaction. A pot of rice with rehydrated shiitake mushrooms tastes like a meal. Plain rice tastes like survival rations. That distinction matters enormously over weeks and months. Stock variety, shiitake, porcini, wood ear, oyster. Each brings different flavors and textures. Porcini gives you that rich, earthy depth that elevates soups and sauces. Wood ear has a satisfying chew. Oyster is milder and versatile. Rotation between varieties prevents flavor fatigue. Shelf life is 5 to 10 years in airtight containers away from light and moisture. I've got 4-year-old bags with full aroma and flavor. Storage is simple. Mason jars or mylar bags with oxygen absorbers. Cool, dark location. Pro tip that most people miss. When you rehydrate dried mushrooms, save the soaking liquid. It's intensely flavorful and makes an exceptional base for soups, sauces, and gravies. Don't pour it down the drain. During the last shortage, I specifically checked Asian grocery stores. Full shelves of dried mushrooms in multiple varieties, while mainstream stores were completely wiped out of fresh and canned. The reason is simple. Most people don't know how to use them. Their loss, your gain. Under $7 a container. Available at every Asian grocery store. And most mainstream supermarkets now carry it too. It's fermented soybean paste. And it's one of the smartest things you can put in a stockpile for reasons most people haven't considered. The obvious use is miso soup. Warm, savory, deeply comforting and nutritionally decent. But the real value is miso as a flavor base and seasoning agent for everything else. A spoonful of miso stirred into grain dishes, vegetable stews, sauces, or marinades adds protein, umami, and complexity that transforms basic ingredients into something your family will actually want to eat. Here's the angle people consistently overlook. Miso contains live probiotic cultures. Gut health during a high-stress situation matters more than most people realize. Stress, dietary changes, unusual physical demands, and compromised sleep all disrupt gut microbiome balance. That disruption affects digestion, nutrient absorption, and immune function. A fermented food with live cultures helps maintain that balance without requiring refrigeration for the sealed containers. Shelf life is exceptional. Sealed containers last years. Open containers last months, even at room temperature due to the salt content. The flavor actually deepens and improves with age, not degrades. During shortages, Asian grocery stores have consistently had full miso shelves when mainstream stores were stripped of every soup base and flavoring product. Stock multiple varieties. White miso is milder and sweeter. Red miso is stronger and more complex. Having both gives you range. 8 containers in my current rotation. Total cost around $55. That's years of flavoring, probiotic support, and morale-sustaining warmth for the price of one dinner out. Foodnub 8. Nutritional yeast. Not baking yeast. Nutritional yeast. Different product. Completely different purpose. And one that most people have never even heard of outside of vegan cooking circles, which is precisely why it's valuable. Here's the hard truth about B vitamins in a long-term survival scenario. If you're not getting B12, you will eventually develop neurological problems. B12 exists almost exclusively in animal products. If your meat supply is limited or gone, and you don't have a supplemental source, deficiency is a matter of when, not if. Nutritional yeast is one of the very few non-animal B12 sources that's also a complete food product rather than a supplement pill. It's deactivated yeast that's been grown specifically for nutritional content, loaded with B vitamins including B12 plus protein and minerals. But here's what seals the deal for me. It tastes like cheese, genuinely, nutty, savory, almost Parmesan-like. Sprinkle it on rice, pasta, vegetables, or popcorn. Mix it with a little oil and starch and some seasonings, and you have a cheese sauce without any dairy. I've made mac and cheese with this for my family during camping trips, told them after what was in it, and they didn't believe me. That's how good it is. In a situation where dairy is unavailable and you're eating basic staple foods every day, the ability to make something taste like cheese is not trivial. It's a morale multiplier. Shelf life is 2 to 3 years in sealed, airtight containers kept away from heat and moisture. Stored with oxygen absorbers, it goes longer. During shortages, it sits completely untouched in health food stores and the natural foods aisle, because 95% of people don't know what it is. I've checked specifically multiple times, never seen it panic bought. 6 pounds in my stockpile, about $70 total. Years of B vitamins and cheese flavor. Food 9. Canned sardines. Not tuna, not salmon, sardines specifically. And here's why that distinction matters more than you'd expect. Tuna is the first canned fish to vanish in any shortage scenario. Every prepper knows about tuna. Every panic buyer grabs tuna. Sardines disappear more slowly because a significant percentage of the population finds them unfamiliar or intimidating. That delay gives you time to stock calmly, while everyone else fights over the tuna aisle. But sardines aren't a consolation prize. Nutritionally, they're superior to tuna in several ways. One small can delivers over 20 grams of protein, a substantial dose of omega-3 fatty acids critical for brain function and inflammation management, calcium from the soft edible bones, which matters enormously if dairy isn't available, and vitamin D. Let me be direct about the omega-3 piece. Cognitive function under prolonged stress degrades. Decision-making gets worse. Emotional regulation suffers. Adequate omega-3 intake helps buffer that degradation. It's not optional nutrition. It's functional nutrition for maintaining the mental sharpness you need when things are actually hard. Shelf life is 3 to 5 years minimum, and many people report them holding quality well beyond that. Canned sardines and olive oil actually improve with age, as the oil permeates the fish. Cost is around $2–3 per can. I keep 120 cans. That's roughly $250 in high-quality animal protein and healthy fat for months of rotation. I incorporate them into regular meals so my family is accustomed to the taste and my stock stays fresh. Sardines on crackers, sardines in pasta, sardines mashed into spreads. The bones are not a drawback. They're soft, completely edible, and an excellent source of bioavailable calcium. If you're eating sardines regularly, you're getting calcium without dairy. That's a significant nutritional gap filled. Like, comment, subscribe. Seriously, if you're finding this valuable, let the algorithm know. Like the video and subscribe. There's a lot more where this came from. Food 10. Wheat berries. The foundation of serious long-term storage, and the item that most mainstream preppers skip because they think buying flour accomplishes the same thing. It doesn't. Not even close. Wheat berries are the intact whole wheat kernels before any processing, stored in sealed food-grade buckets with oxygen absorbers. They last 25 to 30 years with full nutritional value and critically full germination potential. You can sprout them for fresh greens. You can plant them if it comes to that. Try doing that with flour. Speaking of flour, it goes stale and loses nutritional value within months. The oils in the wheat germ oxidize once the grain is cracked. Fresh ground flour from wheat berries is nutritionally superior to anything you buy at a store, and it tastes better. Once you've eaten bread made from flour you ground that morning, the supermarket stuff tastes like cardboard by comparison. Versatility: grind them fresh for bread, cook them whole as a hearty grain, similar in texture to farro or barley, sprout them for vitamin-rich greens, or plant them as a crop. 4 completely different applications from one ingredient. Cost is the other thing that stops me cold. A 50-pound bag runs about $40 at a grain co-op or health food store bulk section. That's roughly 80,000 calories for the price of dinner at a mid-range restaurant. Nothing in prepping competes with that caloric value per dollar. You'll need a grain mill to use them. I use a hand crank model that costs about $75 and requires zero electricity. It's a one-time investment that pays for itself the first time the grid goes down. During the last shortage, flour was gone in hours. Bread was gone. Pasta was gone. Wheat berries sat untouched in bulk bins. Because most people don't know what they are or what to do with them. The people who did know walked out with full buckets while everyone else was panicking. That's the advantage of actually understanding your food supply. I keep 200 pounds in deep storage. Cost me about $160, 6 months of staple calories for my family, at less than the price of a few weeks of regular groceries. Foodist 11, ghee. Clarified butter. Most people know about butter. Nobody thinks to stockpile ghee, and that's a critical oversight. Ghee is butter that's been slowly heated to remove all the water content and milk solids. What remains is pure butterfat, and it's shelf-stable at room temperature for up to 2 years sealed, and significantly longer when refrigerated. Regular butter needs refrigeration and goes rancid within weeks once opened. In a grid-down situation with no refrigeration, butter is a liability. Ghee is an asset. The flavor is richer and more complex than regular butter. Nutty, deeply savory, with high smoke point that makes it excellent for cooking over high heat. It handles the kinds of cooking you end up doing during emergencies. Open flame, camp stove, cast iron, all of it. Caloric density is comparable to duck fat, around 120 calories per tablespoon. In a survival context, every tablespoon of ghee stirred into a pot of grain or legumes adds significant calories that cost almost nothing in storage space. Buy it in glass jars. Store in a cool, dark location. It'll outlast regular butter by years. Food None 12. Dried lentils. If chickpeas are the 30-year protein storage solution, lentils are the fast response companion. Unlike chickpeas, lentils require zero soaking. You rinse them, boil them for 20 minutes, and they're done. That matters when you're conserving fuel and can't afford to boil something for 2 hours. Red lentils cook fastest and break down into a thick, creamy texture ideal for soups and dulling. Green and brown lentils hold their shape and work better in salads or as a side dish. French lentils are the most robust and work in virtually any application. The nutritional profile is nearly identical to chickpeas. High protein, high fiber, good mineral content, excellent caloric density. Combined with wheat berries or rice, lentils create complete proteins, all essential amino acids covered without any animal products. Shelf life is 20+ years stored properly. Cost is under $2 a pound at any bulk grocer. They're compact, lightweight, and cook fast. There's no rational reason not to have 30 to 50 pounds of assorted lentils in your deep storage. During shortages, they disappear slower than canned beans because people don't know how to cook them from dried. That's your advantage again. Food science 13. Freeze-dried coconut milk powder. Here's one that essentially nobody has in their stockpile. And the omission is baffling once you understand what it does. Coconut milk powder reconstitutes with water into full-fat coconut milk. That's the base for curries, soups, stews, desserts, and sauces across dozens of cuisines. A single can of coconut milk powder provides the equivalent of 20 or more cans of liquid coconut milk in a fraction of the storage space and weight. The shelf life sealed is 3 to 5 years. The cost is reasonable, about $15-20 for a can that will last months of regular use. And the cooking versatility it unlocks is enormous. If you have coconut milk powder, dried lentils, and basic spices, you can make a legitimately good curry in 30 minutes over a camp stove. That's real food, not survival rations. The psychological value of being able to cook something that tastes like a real meal, not just adequate calories, cannot be overstated. Morale is a resource. Protecting it is strategic, not sentimental. Food 14. Raw honey. The one food that has been scientifically demonstrated to have an infinite shelf life. Archaeologists have found honey in Egyptian tombs that was still technically edible after thousands of years. This is not marketing copy, it's chemistry. Honey is antimicrobial by nature. The combination of low moisture content, low pH, and the presence of hydrogen peroxide-producing enzymes prevents virtually all microbial growth. As long as moisture doesn't get in, honey does not spoil, period. Beyond longevity, raw honey is medicinally useful. It's a legitimate wound dressing with antimicrobial properties. It soothes sore throats and coughs effectively. It's a dense calorie source, about 60 calories per tablespoon, and it's a natural sweetener that makes otherwise unpalatable food significantly more appealing. If your honey crystallizes, and raw honey will, because that's what real honey does, it hasn't gone bad. Place the jar in warm water for a few minutes, and it returns to liquid form. Crystallization is a sign of quality, not spoilage. Buy raw, unfiltered honey from local producers if possible. The flavor is superior, and you're getting the full enzymatic content. Store in sealed glass jars. That's it. No special preparation required. During shortages, processed sugar disappears fast. Honey moves slower because it's more expensive, and people don't think of it as an essential. But in a prolonged situation where you need caloric density, a natural preservative, a wound treatment, and something to make your food taste good, honey earns its place. Food 15. Whole peppercorns and dried spice blends. I'm combining these because the underlying principle is the same. Flavor transforms survival food from something you endure into something you actually want to eat, and that distinction matters more than most people will admit until they've spent 2 weeks eating plain rice. Whole peppercorns last indefinitely. Ground black pepper loses flavor within 6 months. If storing ground spices and expecting them to still be useful years from now, you're storing disappointment. Buy whole and grind as needed. Beyond pepper, whole cumin seeds, coriander seeds, dried chilies, whole cloves, cinnamon sticks, turmeric, smoked paprika. These are the ingredients that let you cycle through Indian, Mexican, Middle Eastern, and Southeast Asian flavor profiles using the same base of beans, grains, and legumes. That variety is the difference between maintaining a functioning household and watching morale collapse over repetition. The shelf life on whole dried spices is years to decades when stored sealed and away from heat. A well-stocked spice supply costs under $100 total and represents years of flavor variety. Nothing else in your stockpile has that return on investment. Like, comment, subscribe. If you've made it this far, you already know this information is different from what you find in the mainstream prepping world. Subscribe for more of it. The bottom line, look, here's what all of this comes down to. Independent thinking is a survival skill. The prepping community, despite its premise of self-reliance, largely moves as a herd. Same products, same suppliers, same content, and then the same shortages when the actual moment arrives. Every item I've just walked you through was chosen for specific reasons: exceptional shelf life, genuine nutritional value, legitimate cooking versatility, and crucially, the likelihood of remaining available when everything else is gone. Because most people have no idea what it is or how to use it, That last criterion is the one that separates strategic stockpiling from regular stockpiling. Anybody can buy rice and canned beans. Those will be gone in the first 2 hours of a panic. The person who walks in calmly and fills a cart with wheat berries, dried chickpeas, nutritional yeast, and coconut milk powder while everyone else is fighting over empty shelves, that person has actually prepared. I've field tested all of this. Extended pantry challenges, power outages, storms. Not just theory. Real-world application with real families eating real food under real constraints. Every item on this list earned its place through that testing. Build your stockpile like a strategist, not a follower. Stop buying what everyone else is buying. Start buying what nobody else is looking at. That's where the real edge is. Drop a comment below telling me which of these items was most surprising and which ones you're already stocking. Be honest, my guess is most of you had 2 or 3 at best before reading this.